scripture reading this morning is Mark 13, verses 24 through 37, and can be found in your pew Bibles on page 39 of the New Testament. The coming of the Son of Man. But in those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heaven. The lesson of the fig tree. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts forth its leaves, you will know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly, I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. The necessity for watchfulness. But about that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Beware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going out on a journey. When he leaves home and puts his slaves in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to be on watch. Therefore, keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn, or else he may find you asleep when he comes suddenly. And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake. The word of God for the people of God.
Depend on our calendar to help us keep track of time. We remember events and appointments in our personal lives and follow the events of the world around us based on a calendar. A calendar that turns over a new year on the 1st of every January. But this week, as it does each year, the church gets a head start. While the rest of the world is waiting for a new year, today is the new year, the beginning of liturgical year B. And all that means is we have 3 cycles of readings, and so they're labeled A, B, and C. Nora Gallagher uses the church year and its seasons as a framework for her graceful meditation. Things seen and unseen, a year lived in faith. The church calendar, she writes, calls into consciousness the existence of a world uninhabited by efficiency. A world filled with excessiveness of saints, ashes, smoke, and fire. It fills my heart with both dread and hope. Today's reading says, therefore keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening or at midnight or at cockcrow or at dawn. Or else he may just find you asleep when he arrives suddenly. And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake. Stay awake, be alert, be ready. In the midst of this gospel reading, this time is very stressful. Or at least it hits me as being very stressful. The description of the end of days when the sun ceases to shine and the moon goes dark and the stars literally are falling from the sky. We are being told that this could happen at any given moment. And we will not know that hour until that hour is upon us. I think if I was alive back then and I heard this for the first time when there was no understanding of how the real world or the universe actually worked, I would be terrified. I would have no problem staying awake because how could I sleep with that kind of news? But I really do like Nora Gallagher's reflection of the church year. The liturgical calendar is something very few of us truly live by, but no matter what, Happy New Year. The church year is literally what a pastor's life revolves around. The only time we pay attention to the secular calendar is probably around tax time. Rest of our calendar is the church calendar, church appointments, church schedules, church getting the newsletter out on time, getting the bulletin done on time, writing a sermon, helping pick music with the music director, and just praying that the sound system works that morning. But Nora's reflection is so elegant and sweet, it bears repeating. The church calendar calls into consciousness the existence of a world uninhabited by efficiency, a world filled with excessiveness of saints, ashes, smoke, and fire. It fills my heart with dread and hope. This season of Advent, we are watching with hope, watching with joy, watching with love, and watching with peace. This Sunday, we watch with hope, the hope that comes with a small child. What does that hope look like? As we live this church calendar, how acutely aware do we become of a world uninhabited by efficiency? Do we see a world filled with excessive amount of saints? Do we taste a world of ash, smoke, and fire? Let's look at that concept of lack of efficiency. Being Christian in this mad world is not efficient at all. We are called to run towards pain. We are called to run towards hunger. We are called to run towards disease and dis-ease. We are called to get out of our comfortable lives and challenge the world around us to be better. We are called to be better. We are called to be in this world as active participants, working to bring about the kingdom of heaven right here, right now, as close as we humanly can get. But how does that happen? What does that look like? It is our relationship with the sacred. It is how we walk seeking that just world for all. The just world for all. Now, that's not my invention. The just world for all is a campaign of the United Church of Christ, which incorporates the three great loves. The three great loves is a denomination's opportunity to express our love of neighbor, our love of children, our love of creation, and work together to address the inequities in our current world. Over the course of the next 2 years, this was introduced at General Synod, through the lens of the three great loves, the United Church of Christ tells the story of how we are impacting and transforming the world, united in common purpose and mission. During these 2 years, there will be moments of special invitation to participate in this denomination-wide undertaking. One by one, we will focus on each of the three great loves in service to our communities. Our expressions of love is and will be our living testimony. That was written by John Dohauer. Our living testimony. We are not a church that does altar calls. We don't seek miraculous healings, though we do claim them and proclaim them. We are a church of action. We are called to the reservations. We are called to the homeless and the hungry. We are called to care for each other and the world the best we can. Actually, we are called to care for the world better than we can. There's a new podcast put out by the United Church of Christ called Podcast for a Just World. It's a new program, and the narrator speaks of unique spirituality that embodies this program. She states, when I talk about spirituality, I am talking about the demonstration of relationships. The commercial spiritual genre highlights only the relationship between an individual and the disembodied divine, but the embodiment of God's love and justice in Jesus and the demonstration of transforming life-giving relationships infused with liberating action and love show us the holiness in the presence of God and in all of our relationships. As we watch for hope, it is through our spiritual relationship that not only do we watch for hope, but we also are hope. As we seek ways to connect to make better this world, it is our knowledge of the embodiment of the divine love in Christ and our practices to mirror that love in this world, to seek out and offer God's love and justice to those who are marginalized and are in pain, that we become the face of Christ, that we are transformed into hope of the world. The narrator in the podcast goes on to say, so then discipleship, the process of walking more deeply, more closely to Jesus, deeply in the action of love, transforming our lives to demonstrate that embodiment, which is to become more human while at the same time recognizing more deeply the sacred. That sacred presence in the every person is part of our path in seeking a just world for all. Maybe it can be called a spirituality of justice. It has everything to do with recognizing our interconnectedness to one another, to creation, to God, and demonstrating those relationships in love. Do justice, walk humbly, love mercy, not just in individual interpersonal encounters, but at the dinner table with the food we eat for our bodies and nourishment, who we invite to share it with us, the way we preserve and prepare the food, the way it is cultivated in the earth, the way we treat those who tend it along the agricultural supply chain. This season of Christmas and Advent brings in a lot of food. Starting with Thanksgiving, we kind of focus on food until New Year's, and then we look at the diet program. But the concept of justice work and food go so hand in hand, it can be overwhelming, but it may be something we need to pay attention to at this time of year. It is truly where the world interconnects. Over 1 billion people are employed in the agricultural world. That represents 1 in 3 of all workers. Labor force participation rates are usually the highest in the poorest of countries. More people are employed out of necessity than by choice, as only a fraction of the working age population can afford not to work. In these countries, low unemployment figures in conjunction with high labor participation rates result in large areas engaged in very vulnerable employment, and many are in working poverty. As Californians, we are rich in agriculture, and yet in those wet and rainy months, much of our food comes from across the border. During the high production months, much of our labor comes from across the border. We need to think about and at the very least be aware of our food and our practices around it. We should think about if it crossed international borders through the trade policies and what we do with our food waste as well. You see, there is a demonstration of relationship in all those things. When we remain or choose to be unaware to that fact, exploitation easily takes root and the dominant dehumanizing structures and systems are free to grow. But recognizing humanity and the deep interconnectedness along the way gives us the opportunity to choose life for ourselves, for others, for creation, and to plant seeds of life. Now, this whole Gospel of Mark was written about 40 years after the crucifixion during Roman occupation, and perhaps that's why there seems to be an urgency to the whole Gospel. The Gospel of Mark moves at breakneck speed, centering the sick, the poor, and the demon-possessed, the literal masses of people marginalized in the economy and system of Roman occupation. Perhaps that is why there is such an urgency to today's message, to keep awake, to keep our eyes open, to be aware of what's going on around us and how we use and participate in the world. I know in this time it's hard to keep our eyes open. We have witnessed injustice, hateful acts, natural disasters, and wars. We can be tempted. We can be very tempted to just look away. But we will stay awake. We will watch for hope in the world to come, and we will strive to be that hope, even if it means just changing our eating habits to a more sustainable way. Even if it means bringing toys for children. There's a toy collection box in back. I had to sneak that in. Even if it means just being aware of our global community and how we are, all of us, each and every one of us, connected. Just by watching for hope, we become the hope that is embodied in the Christ child. Let us continue to be that hope as we begin to seek, or continue to seek, a just world for all. Amen.